So I noticed that you are not in your Camry today, and you pulled up in something new.
Yeah, man. Picked up a new whip. They got me real good today.
Oh, they got you real good, or what
I
happened?
mean, you never really go into a dealership ready to fully commit, and you always feel like you got the worst end of the deal. Today I felt good. I will say I felt good, but I did not expect to drop tens of thousands of dollars on a car. Let's just say. Thought I would maybe go in and buy a Snickers.
Buy Snickers at the car dealership?
Bro, they have fresh ass Snickers. Like
Really?
way better than the other vending machines that I've gone to. Their Snickers are fire.
What about their Snickers makes them so good?
They just taste fresh. Like they got a fucking, lady in the back just making them, wrapping them, and putting them in the vending
You got
machine.
a freaking Snickers factory
Yeah,
in the back
it's a Snickers
of the
grandma
Toyota
back there.
dealership. So what did you end up picking up? You traded in the Camry for?
RAV4.
Okay,
Yeah.
gotcha.
So, we have a baby on the way. We're trying to figure out what are the things that are going to make our lives easier.
Mm-hmm.
Having a slightly elevated car, an SUV, making it a little bit more safer.
Sure.
All these things I guess you now have to think about as a soon-to-be dad and mom.
Of course.
So
I heard they're really safe too. So
they are really safe, really good mileage. But the funny thing is that when I went into the dealership, it felt like there was less people. Less people on the car lot, less people buying, less people really just working. I don't know if it was just today or maybe that's just how it has changed since the last like 6 months or 1 year.
I'd be interested to see like when the automakers release their quarterly reports for Q4 or in Q1, I should say. I'd be curious to see how car sales actually look, because I mean, there is a decent chance he walked in when it was just low traffic, but you never know.
Yeah, very good point.
Okay. Having said that, let's get into it.
Let's do it.
Let's go. All right, welcome to another Debatable at Best podcast, where we talk about everything from global markets, the economy, life, and bad coffee, but don't expect answers, just perspective. I am your host, Ray.
My name is Amol, and today we're going to be talking about AI and some other good things that are happening in the world.
Indeed. Before I get into AI, though, I want to touch on one subject that's AI adjacent, which I thought was really, really interesting in my research that I've been doing. And that's just overall the scope and the way renewable energies is powering the world. Apparently, for the first time in modern history, renewable energy is now producing more electricity globally than coal did. Or
Wow.
coal ever has. Yeah, and as you know, and we've talked about many times on this show before, it always seems like you're not replacing one energy source with another, you're just adding on. But maybe over time, you just use less and less of it. So for the first time ever, we've surpassed coal. And in the first half of 2025, renewables surpassed coal as the world's largest source of electricity generation, which is, I guess, a milestone that seems super off, or just seemed way off. Not even a few years ago, right? We wouldn't think renewable energies would be surpassing traditional generations of power. So I thought that was really interesting. But what's interesting to know from renewables specifically is that solar and wind together grew fast enough to cover the entire increase in global electricity demand from January to June 2025.
Incredible.
Yeah. So if you were to put that in perspective, every new light bulb, every new data center, every new factory was powered with clean energy.
Did they have a breakdown? Because I would assume that solar is likely taking a much more rapid growth pace, and out of China, I would assume it's nuclear.
Yeah, so if you further break it down, solar alone accounted for 83% of new demand growth.
Wow.
Right.
I mean, I'm not surprised. Then again, Trump fucking hates windmills, so that's a
Yeah.
thing too.
Yeah, because windmills, what do they do? They affect the whales. That's
Apparently, it just maybe blows off his wig or
yeah.
something.
So you know what's really funny about that solar number though? 83% of new demand growth. That is actually adding roughly the same amount of electricity that Italy uses in an entire year,
Wow.
which is crazy to think about. You know, there's this is a little bit of a side tangent, but apparently Elon Musk was asked about solar and its power and its capacities a long time ago. And this is a statistic that he told everyone. He said that if you covered essentially the entire state of Texas with solar panels, right? You get all that sunshine, you get all that bright. You covered essentially the entire. You wouldn't have to cover even the entire state, just the entire Permian Basin of Texas. That would be more than enough energy to power the entire world.
That's incredible.
Right. Now, I don't know the specifics. I don't know how, you know, how powerful each solar panel would have to be, how much each solar panel would have to produce, how much backup generation we'd need through lithium battery packs, or whatever, in case we needed to store extra energy for whatever reason. I don't know all the specifics of that, but he said we can make it to the point where the entire world is running off only solar panels.
Yeah, well, one thing I will say is a long time ago I read this solar study because I was pretty deep into buying solar stocks, especially because one of my friends, he worked in the solar industry.
Mm-hmm.
He helped with the sales. He helped build a business that installed solar panels in Austin. And so I got to learn a little bit more about how that industry works and what kind of power production is being created, as well as where the industry is going.
Mm-hmm.
What that taught me was solar is truly underrated when it comes to how much power it can actually produce in the entire world. And of course, it being effectively, carbon neutral, net positive for the environment, of course.
Mm-hmm.
And overall, it doesn't necessarily have the same attached potential risks like, say, nuclear does.
Right. Right.
And I think, if I'm not mistaken, even the nowadays, like the installation costs, the materials costs, etc., significantly lower than it was 10, 15 years ago. Whereas, say, a nuclear power plant, the costs are still extremely high. Windmills, still high, right? So the solar costs are perpetually just going down, whereas the output is getting better and better.
Now, would you say that's because production of solar panels has come to a point where China can just manufacture these at a scale where they're pumping them out, or do you think it's because of this manufacturing scale, or do you think it's because of incentives provided by their countries? Because we're not providing incentives really anymore in the United States for this kind of stuff, except unless it's on a state level. So do you think it's because China is able to pump this out?
I'm sure it's a little bit of both, because it's not like nuclear costs are just going to spontaneously change, right? Because the
Right.
risks
Right.
attached to it are still effectively the same. So to gate those risks, it still costs a lot of money. You still need a certain level of engineering prowess, if you will, and degrees and whatever is necessary to make sure that the population is safe and the things that are done in the nuclear power plant are
Mm-hmm.
done up to standards.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, when it comes to wind energy, not necessarily the same. But again, I think the output is nowhere close to what solar is.
Right.
So the trade-off here is, I think the real sort of comp is solar versus nuclear. And I'm not surprised that the world is going towards solar, whether it be because it's becoming more commercialized and incentive programs, etc.
Mm-hmm.
It's so obvious. Like,
Right.
there's a hot ball of fire in the universe
Right.
that has the ability to power
As
us.
infinite energy, basically.
It is effectively infinite. Unless the
Yeah.
sun is going to blow up,
Right.
which of course means we're fucked anyway.
Right.
That is going to be your source of energy for generations and generations to come.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so why not utilize it, to its fullest?
Right. So the reason why I brought up the China manufacturing aspect is because they seem to be the ones that are leading the whole transformation. So China, not only with solar, but with also wind, has installed nearly 360 gigawatts in 2024 alone. So that's more than half of all global additions China is generating through renewables. The country's emissions actually flatlined in 2025, which is interesting to think about because of how heavy they are in manufacturing. But they weren't using any less energy, which is interesting to think about again. So they're, if I'm not wrong, on track to hit carbon neutrality by 2060.
Wow.
Which is crazy again to think about. I don't know if China is the world's most polluting nation, which I would believe it is. And then India may be a close second, if not surpassing them for number one now. It's crazy to think that within the next less than 30 years or 34 years, they're going to be net carbon neutral.
I had read this thing where China is basically having the solar panels be like kites, and the energy that is delivered is going to basically be pulled down from those kites down to the homes, down to the cities. I think these are
via kites.
It's not necessarily a kite, but it's almost like floating solar panels, if you will.
Oh,
like in the sky. So think of hot weather balloon, or I don't know, something basically floating in the sky that has clearly got thousands of feet of advantage to reach the sun directly and capture that energy and feed it down to the people. Supposedly that output that gets captured is worth it in terms of, cost effectiveness. And I just think that's kind of interesting because China is doing all the unique things to make sure that it and its country's citizens are getting cheaper energy prices, better air quality, better standard of living. Of course, all alternative energies, in my opinion, lead to better standard of living,
right,
cleaner air, etc. Right.
Right.
So I think they're doing all the right things, and America is just not right now.
Yeah, I mean, one could argue that in the country that you're living in, they should be able to provide you with your basics, right, for little to maybe even no cost, like electricity, water, sewage, even internet at this point. It seems like it's a staple. What is really interesting to note is that even in other slightly less developed countries like Africa and South Asia, rooftop solar imports surged 60% as people realized they could cheaply power lights, phones, fans without waiting for any grid infrastructure to be erected. Which is, again, great because if you look at Kenya's Kibera slums, smaller solar systems are actually providing reliable electricity where the traditional grid never even reached them.
That's amazing.
Yeah, so it's gotten to a point where this is kind of a really dumb way to connect it, but remember back in India in the day, only people who were doing really well had cell phones.
Yes.
But now if you go to any street vendor in a corner, they have their own smartphones.
Yeah.
It's gotten to that point where you can scale this down to the point where you can just install it and get it up and running very cheaply to the point where it will become a staple. Everyone will just have it.
This reminds me of a project I remember back in the day. It was called, I think, Power, POWR, Power Ledger, something like that. It was a crypto project, and it was ambitious because what they were trying to do is, in the same way now American society has sort of advanced, where you can, if you decide to, say, use your dishwasher in the off-peak times, say at night, you run your dishwasher, you are charged maybe less per watts of usage
Mm.
versus in the middle of the afternoon. So that's one way of incentivizing usage. The other way is what this project was doing is if you had solar panels or wind turbines, some form of energy that is being generated, and you're actually giving it back to the grid. What they were doing is they were rewarding you with their power tokens. So you're effectively making money. In the same way that I think solar panels that have that optionality too nowadays is if you are effectively generating solar and you're somewhat contributing back to the grid, you're making money.
Yeah, with solar, I think the way it works is only this is the only reason I know is because I actually looked into it. If you're generating excess electricity that your home is you know, if you're generating more than 100% of your requirements, you can sell that excess back into the grid.
Right.
So if your house uses 2,000 kilowatt hours of energy per month, but you're producing 3,000 kilowatt hours, you can sell 1,000 kilowatt hours back. Now, the way that that works, and it depends on what solar company or what deal you have set up, but what you can do is that when you do sell that, you actually gain credits to a certain degree so that if there's off-peak times or times or during the year where you need to buy electricity off the grid, you can use those credits to offset what you're purchasing from the grid.
Wow.
So your effective purchasing is like net zero.
Yeah, I think I'm really bullish on when it comes to decentralizing these large scale infrastructures, whether it's GPUs and energy, even something as simple as Turo. The fact that a person who owns his own car is able to monetize off that by renting it, that is in its own way a decentralization of the traditional rental model. Because prior to that, you had your Hertz of the world and your Avises, but now you are your own Hertz.
Right.
I think that's amazing. And I think ultimately that's where the world is going. There's going to be a lot of these infrastructures that are going to get the larger,
Decentralized?
decentralized, disintermediated, because people are starting to realize, well, wait a second, I have all these things. I have a home, I can put it on Airbnb. I have a car, I could rent it out through Turo.
Right.
Why would I not try to monetize? Yeah, this I think this is largely under the current of hyper financialization that I think society is going through, where almost everything is being financialized in such a way where you look around and you're going to figure out some way to monetize XYZ thing.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. Funny enough, um and this is going to sound kind of bougie, but I have the top tier status in basically all the rental companies: Avis, Hertz,
Oh
National
shit.
Enterprise.
Flex.
So like,
Flex on them.
yeah.
Flex on them, Sway.
So it's funny that I don't traditionally, where I would want to rent from Turo, I normally don't, because I get such good deals through the traditional rental companies that they upgrade me into the nicer thing. I can keep them for whenever. I can kind of run everything through the app. And it's easy in the sense that you can just pick them up from the airport and drop them off. So I'm kind of ashamed to admit that while I would want to contribute to this gig economy thing, I actually have never used Turo.
Oh my god. It's actually pretty dope. I've used it before. It's
Yeah.
nice. It's seamless.
I had this one small issue where I was thinking about renting in Turo in Hawaii, but it became a big deal because the person who was trying to drop off the car said that the airport grounds don't allow Turo rentals to be there. So I'd effectively have to land and then essentially walk off site to meet the owner of the car to then drive it away.
Oh
Because
wow.
only the rental companies were allowed on site.
Oh.
Yeah, it was kind of lame. I don't want to say that's what put me off Turo, but that's another one reason why it put me off Turo.
Yeah, tell us more of your bougie stories.
Yeah. So when I went to this lounge one time, no kidding. What I do want to talk about though, and I think this is an interesting angle to bring up, what you were talking about before, I think energy in general is adjacent to AI.
Of course. Of course. I think you're totally right. I think you're spot on because the battle for energy now is predominantly fought amongst the large data conglomerates or AI companies. Everybody wants a piece of figuring out, well, wait, it's going to take us X amount of energy input that's necessary to keep our data centers running, to make sure that the LLM models and the GPUs and everything that's necessary to power this AI world is going to get the proper energy input. And you could kind of see it by the R&D costs that are going from the large companies like Amazons of the world or the OpenAIs. They're all trying to figure out, well, wait a second, why don't we just build our own power plant? Why don't we just acquire one like Amazon did? They acquired like that nuclear power plant or something, last year.
Right.
Everybody, I think, is thinking of this because they know that energy is the limiter.
Right. Well, especially with AI data centers, because from the last statistic that I heard, an AI data center, a massive one, one that, an Amazon would want to build or Meta would want to build or Google would want to build, they effectively use the same amount of power as an entire small city with at least 200,000 people. So if you think about that, you're powering an entire city in a building.
Yeah.
Right? And I think the argument that I've been hearing is that, well, if you let these AI data centers tap into our local electricity, effectively what will happen is all of our rates will jump. We're effectively subsidizing their energy costs through our bills. And residents and people don't want to do that. And I think that's why companies are now considering, well, and even politicians are somewhat pushing this, that are saying, well, look, if you want to create these AI data centers, you have to create your own power source on top of that to power it.
Yeah. No, I'm not surprised at all that this is where the world is heading, because what we've seen is the demand for AI usage is just moving at such a rapid rate.
Oh, it's skyrocketing.
It's skyrocketing, and I think OpenAI's numbers themselves are impressive. I think they stated that they have 800 million weekly active users. That is insane. And now that Claude is really taking off and Gemini's thrown their hat in the ring with how incredible their product is, it's just all going to grow exponentially because your usage is not going to go down, and neither is the amount of people that are going to be using these models.
Mm-hmm.
We're all going to be, in my opinion, glued to AI, have our life totally weaved with AI in the same way that we are glued to our phones.
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
I see this already. I'm sure you do too.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I've been using different AI chatbots and AI features for a little bit now, and I think a lot of people have been exploring it since 2022. So it'll be interesting to see how even small businesses adapt to it. You're part of a small business. I would say I run a small business, and I'm thinking every day, and I'm sure you are too, what is the best way to optimize our time by introducing AI tools into our businesses? Right? Like, I think one of the biggest things, let's say in the finance world, which I'm seeing especially, is, I don't know if you've used Claude Cowork or the Claude extension inside Excel that just recently came out. It could effectively do a financial analyst's job within a matter of hours, if not a few minutes, where previously financial analysts would have had to gone through multiple years of training and school and everything to get everything done that Cowork and these add-ons to Excel could do, which is insane to think about.
So I've definitely been noticing this trend because even for my business, ChatGPT has been such a huge help. It has
Mm-hmm.
really replaced the necessity of me having a bookkeeper. And my friend, he actually has his own firm that does accounting and bookkeeping. I had shown this to him maybe about a year ago, and he's aware of AI tools. I think he uses them maybe at arm's length, like here and there, just for random stuff. I just don't think he knew the scope and caliber of these tools. And when I showed it to him of what I already do for my business, for the bookkeeping aspect, he was stunned. He was blown away. I think,
Yeah, yeah,
even like you said, whether you talk about a financial analyst or something a little bit higher from like an investment banker to mergers and acquisitions, all the financial companies in the world are starting to rethink their priors of, if I already have a 50-person team that is paying, say, $10 million a year to make these deals happen, if I just cut that by 50%, 60%, 70%, and those people who you have on the team are just more AI savvy, you've now just saved more than 50 to 70% of your costs for maybe an enterprise AI model that
yep.
costs, I don't know, 1,000 a year. Even if it's 10,000 a year, who cares?
It could be 50,000 a year.
Yeah,
It would still work.
and they sure are not charging that much, but regardless, I think all the banks in the world, all the financial institutions are deeply thinking, how are we going to start cutting heads of departments, redundant analysts, redundant work, to the point where AI can do a lot of this stuff and my staff could be cut by 70, 80, 90%.
Yeah.
I don't think that world is too far away. I would imagine it's
No.
less than 5 years away.
I think we're starting to see effects of that now.
Yeah.
Like, if you look at Amazon, they recently cut another 16,000 jobs yesterday. We're recording on a Thursday. They literally just cut those jobs yesterday, 16,000. And that was a total of about 30,000 jobs that they've been wanting to cut since last year. So they've effectively done the second half of those cuts in the first quarter of this year. I know someone that was personally affected by those cuts, and he works in the engineering side of things for Amazon and AWS. So that's already starting now. I don't know if AI specifically had any relation to what they were cutting in UPS, because UPS cut 30,000 workers. They're citing lower shipment volume from Amazon, which I can understand. But I also feel like they're cutting in other areas where they know AI can take over too. I don't think that's beyond UPS to think about. They're a logistics company at the end of the day, and there's no one that can crunch logistics as fast than an AI model could.
Yeah, of course. I think we're entering a really unique part of the technological arc where, they say this time is different, and it never really is. Well, I really think this time is different because more often than not, everybody claims that, oh, well, when the Industrial Revolution happened, everybody was scared. And guess what? It created a lot of jobs. Oh, well, when the computer came out, people were scared because they were going to lose their jobs. And guess what? Everybody started getting tech jobs. When the internet came out, people were scared that they were going to lose their jobs. But then it created multiple other industries.
Right.
I just think that we've hit this culmination of all large technological innovation where I don't see how this is going to create more jobs. Isn't the whole point of AI to distill it all into one overlord style model that knows everything?
It's funny. I actually agree with you on the sentiment that I don't actually think AI coming online is going to create more jobs, but there are a whole host of people out there that actually disagree with us.
I'm sure.
They actually think that, oh, AI coming online is actually going to create more jobs, because what people are going to do, what companies are going to do, and this is their argument. I'm not saying this is what I'm saying, this is what they're saying. They're saying that, oh, well, AI is going to take over certain portions of the job, that those portions of the job are going to become more efficient, but then they're going to want to do more of another job or more of something else, and they're going to need that manpower to do it. I don't know if I necessarily agree with that sentiment. I think if they need more things done, they'll just put more AI power behind it and get it done.
That's exactly you're I think you hit the nail on the head, because the idea of creating more jobs versus having more productivity, totally separate things.
Right.
I think people are conflating the two, because what they're not seeing is, well, this one thing is now capable of doing the job of 5 people from 5 different departments, not just one department. You could just have one guy, one AI tool, know everything of the 5 departments, and have the communication gap between those 5 departments seamless, because it just knows everything.
Mm-hmm.
It clearly knows what is happening in finance and what's happening in HR and what's happening in accounting and sales, etc.
Yeah, I mean, it's wired into your entire ecosystem.
Right, exactly. I think we really are underestimating AI, because maybe I could see the argument that it is allowing people to have these same skill sets that we spoke about to be able to build things, but that's not a job. That's for you to create a business and monetize, versus having the ability to get a job as part of a larger company. And so I'm not saying that people will be destitute and they literally won't have anything to do, but I just think that it's going to be significantly harder to be able to monetize off these things, because everybody and their mother has access to the same tools. Like, we are all, like, no previous time in history have we all had access to the same thing to build the same whatever idea that we want with the same technology layer. And here you are, everybody's racing for that.
Well, yeah, and I think you're right, because the barrier to entry is dropped to literally nothing.
Yeah, exactly. You, me, and my cousin, who is probably 14, we might have the same access to the same skills now to build
looking
stuff.
at the same shit.
Yeah. So it's like everybody can crank out apps and businesses and projects 10 times a day.
You know, this actually brings up an interesting thought on my end. Think about it this way. You've effectively leveled the playing field for everyone.
Yes.
Now, if you put more thought into that, think about how things used to be set up, right? The barrier to, and this is a little bit arbitrary, but I'll get my point across. You had to get into law school and get a degree so you could practice law. That playing field is coming down. You had to go to school. You had to get a finance degree. You had to learn on the job how to do analysis. That bar is coming down. You had to go to medical school. You had to learn everything about patients and diagnosis, and, learn everything there is to know about the human as much as you possibly could. That barrier has also dropped. Like, I don't think you can name one aspect of white collar work where the barrier isn't just a level field. Because before, you'd have all these different levels, right?
Yes.
And now that field is just flat. So it'll be interesting to see what the average consumer does with that information and leveling the playing field, and how they kind of come up with things moving forward. Because would law school even be necessary? Would medical school be necessary? Is college necessary?
Yeah, I think college is definitely fucked. I mean, college has been on a decline for a long time, but now, I have this intern assistant, and I chat with her to help me with some things on our business end, and on the side, she's just like, I have no idea what I'm doing in college because I'm building all kinds of cool stuff with AI. A lot of people in my
Yeah.
classes are already using AI to do their homework or help with the quizzes. So what is really the point if AI is already, front of your brain and the rest of your brain is just kind of useless? It's just ingesting what AI is already doing the hard part for you.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. I think college degrees themselves are going to have lesser and lesser value. People are, especially young people, are going to start building, more and more stuff. I think that's just how society's going to go.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. I've always held this idea in my head that not that college is worthless or not worth going to. I think it's great for some people. I have
I think it's
nothing
great.
against.
I think it's great networking. I think it's
Yeah.
great to network. It's great to be amongst your peers and sit with teachers and listen. But the reality is, a lot of people, when they go to college, that's not the experience that they're having. What they're really having is the experience of partying and socializing and kind of half-assing their way through college. And I just don't think that's going to cut it anymore.
Yeah. Like, I have nothing against education. I think you got to live, you got to learn. You're going to live and learn every single day, right? I mean, I can go on and on about college, and we can actually make this a completely different topic for another time because I have a lot of thoughts about that. And I don't want to get bogged down with this. But I feel like, with what you're going through in college, all the money that you're putting towards it, your ROI is becoming harder and harder to justify.
100%.
Like, I mean, I know my wife would probably kill me for saying this because she's a little bit more traditionalist than I am, but I would actually give my kids an option to go to college. Like, I wouldn't force them into it if they didn't want to.
Yeah, I'm also thinking along the same lines, honestly. As much as I find the socializing aspect of it really, really important, I just don't know. Unless,
Yeah, but $40,000 a year socializing?
Well, see, that's what I'm saying. See, that's where I often think.
And that's an in-state school,
That's
by the way.
in-state, right? Even if it's community college, dude, I think I'm okay with that. And honestly, I'm starting to become a big proponent of community colleges because I'm realizing if you have the same access to the tools, and this is becoming this AI-driven society,
Mm-hmm.
and you are looking to socialize people amongst your city, your peers, whatever. Okay, yes, there's gonna be a caliber difference between the guy you meet at Harvard versus the person you're gonna meet at a Houston Community College. But regardless, you're gonna have a good experience and you're gonna have good social moments and be able to share ideas and share different worldviews.
Yeah, and again, I think if you ask me what colleges should be, there should be a place of exploration, there should be a place of discovery, there should be a place of shared knowledge instead of the type of institutionalized areas that they are now. Again, I don't want to get into the weeds of this. I feel like we've sidetracked a little bit from the AI conversation, but to bring it back, that's what I feel like colleges should be. The thing is, with the advent of AI, with the advent of these LLMs, there's almost no reason to need to go into college to be educated on something if it's just available to you. Now, real quick, one could argue and be like, well, all that information was already out there. You could always Google it. You could always look it up. That's true. But I'm saying that new levels of AI, where we're at now, have real implications on real jobs that can be really replaced right now. Google was not like that. Like, you can't become a doctor and just Google search everything because it's never going to be smart enough to know the nuances of certain things. But you can be a medical professional that doesn't have a medical degree telling AI what's going on. It could live read vitals and stuff and give you an output. That's something a Google search could never do.
100%. You know what this makes me think of is I can't wait till the first guy who goes to his own court case and he uses Claude or ChatGPT to basically defend himself.
There's people out there who are defending speeding tickets via AI and letters and stuff now.
Yeah, but I'm talking about like real litigation. In court. Because you can kind of see the AI is getting to the point where it is almost real time conversational with you. And imagine having the entire world's knowledge, especially nowadays, real time, in the palm of your hand in your phone, whereas the judge or any other lawyer, not even close. Right? So
Right.
if you're able to make that kind of argument, especially from like a law perspective through an AI, it's a pretty damn compelling, winnable case in my opinion.
And I know this is a side tangent again, but I have to get this out there. I think, and I feel like we all know this, the law profession could be in jeopardy in general. But I also always felt like the law shouldn't be so hard to interpret that an average citizen shouldn't be able to fight their own cases.
Very true.
Right? Like
100%.
I think lawyers are a little bit different in the sense that they have a lot of knowledge around legal proceedings and process. But I also just feel like every average person should have easy access to that. And you shouldn't always need someone like, I know I'm probably going to get crucified for this, but you don't need someone to represent you all the time. Like it shouldn't have to be that difficult, is
Agreed.
what I'm trying to say, to navigate legal framework.
100% agree.
And that's where I feel like things like that, like the point you're just making, AI is going to have a tremendous impact on that.
100%.
Yeah. So I want to take this in a different direction also. I want to talk about how AI by itself, but other factors have also led to the US's economy's very surprising resilience. Right? So we know that AI, building infrastructure, data centers, chips, computing power, all that stuff, partly is responsible or is playing a bigger role than you realize to the GDP of America. Right? Would you agree with that?
Yeah, definitely. I think the larger American economy right now is so skewed for the top part of the K, which is that larger K-shaped economy.
Mm-hmm.
I think the top 1%, the top 5% of the wealthy elite, as well as corporations, are disproportionately benefiting from this AI surge, whereas like the bottom 90, 95% people are generally just not.
Right.
So, and of course, that goes along with if you are in large part owning assets.
Mm-hmm.
I think, what is a stat? Like 40 or 45% of Americans have a stock account or own stocks. So it's more or less like, okay, well, a large part of America is still not benefiting from that. And especially the top 5 to 10% plus corporations are way more, making way more money than the bottom tier of the 80 to 90% of society.
Right.
And it just, it's not making sense to a lot of people.
Yeah. I mean, this is creating a type of wealth effect that's helping consumer spending outpace wage growth.
Yeah.
So that's one aspect of it, right? I want to give you a few stats real quick. So Q3 GDP, that growth came in at 4.4%, which is the fastest pace in 2 years and well above any forecasting. And this wasn't just a 1 quarter fluke. So Q2 we hit 3.8%, which is interesting. But this growth actually happened despite any of these major tariff disruptions and policy uncertainty. Consumer spending has stayed strong. Business investment accelerated. It was recently revised from 1.9% to 7.3% in Q2. And exports actually grew even regardless of all these trade sanctions that are happening. And the stock market even hit fresh highs. So all of that to say that you're right. I feel like, especially on the stock market end, a lot of the people that are investors are seeing tremendous growth. But if you ask 75% of Americans in recent surveys, they would give the economy either a C, D, or an F. So there is a huge disconnect between what's actually happening and the way consumers feel about it. You could say that, partly this is the media, partly this is what's going on in the administration. But I don't think it's that offbeat to say, well, things are actually getting really expensive. maybe the rich are actually helping keep this up because they're able to spend more money on more expensive items, but that doesn't help the lower half of the United States population.
No, it absolutely doesn't, because at the end of the day, if you sort of look at a large part of GDP, especially from a consumption perspective,
Yeah.
consumption and services, right? That's really where American GDP is actually defined. And if you think about, okay, there's approximately 400 million people in America. Let's just say 380 million of them are middle income or lower income parts of society, maybe even like upper middle. The rest of the elite and stuff simply do not consume enough. Like, think of the average elite out there, right? Think of the
Sure.
corporations out there.
Sure.
They're simply not going to buy 10 times more toilet paper than the middle of America.
Because
Right.
we all know we need that toilet paper.
Right. So I think it's basic economics like that, where you have to think about the delivery, the Uber delivery, the like we said, toilet paper, cereal, milk, beef. These are regular people's expenses, and regular people are the ones who are getting squished, whereas the top part of society is not feeling any bit of the pain. You could raise the taxes on them 10, 20, 30%. It still wouldn't matter, because again, for them to be able to buy that toilet paper and buy that beef, it is negligible. It doesn't even like register for them.
Right.
For
Right.
us, it does.
It's
right?
not even like it's not even a penny in their bucket.
It's not even a penny in their bucket.
Right.
So I think this is where you start seeing that K-shaped economy really take fold, where you start to realize, well, of course GDP is taking up, but it's taking up in corners of society that are lifting up one aspect of the K-shaped economy, whereas the rest of the economy, which again, population-wise, and the larger productivity, the larger jobs, the larger contribution to society, are just not getting that benefit.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like capitalism is now coming to the end of the road, where it's showing, oh no, yes, capitalism was great all this time, but where do you think this goes? Like, where do you think this road ends? It ends with the disproportionality of the elites and the corporations having almost unlimited wealth, almost unlimited power, and the bottom 80-90% of society simply is just not getting that trickle down wealth effect.
Right. So, what I think is interesting to also think about as a thought exercise is that, let's just say half of America, 200 million people that are lower middle class or poor, right? If they can't start affording anything, right? I guess economics would demand that the prices of things continues to go up, right? Because
Sure.
you're selling less of an item. So economics would say, well, if the demand is going down, prices are going to have to rise. So I think we're in this interesting time period where, if we continue in this direction where people are affording less and less and less of staple items, things will continue to get more and more and more expensive because of laws of supply and demand. Where do you think that leaves the bottom half of America? Are they just going to be entrenched in the bottom and never be able to get up?
Well, I think you're already starting to see the effects of unaffordability for homes, to people really tightening up their pocketbook for whether it's vacations or fancy dinners,
Mm-hmm.
or even if it's not a fancy dinner, right?
Just eating out.
Eating out. You and I have kind of seen that the average cost of eating out, say you were going out for a couple of burgers and dessert. Well, maybe 5-7 years ago, that would have yielded you at a decent restaurant $25. Let's just say $30-$35 with tip.
Right.
I'm pretty sure it's close to double that now. Like, a decent restaurant, when it comes to burgers, fries, tips, and then a dessert, dude, easily $70.
Yeah, no, and we don't even live in what is considered an expensive city.
No, Houston is the most affordable city in America. And yet people are still
Arguably.
feeling,
Yeah.
and yet people are still feeling the pain.
Yeah, they're pinched. Yeah. I don't know exactly what the answer to any of this stuff is yet. That's why we only provide perspective. And this topic is debatable at best, but
Nice plug.
Yeah. I mean, that I kind of lose some sleep thinking about this kind of stuff. Like, I think between the two of us, individually speaking, we're at the point where, okay, if things raise in price a little bit, we can absorb that, we can swallow that. But I'm just thinking about someone who lives on the other side of town that's like, oh crap, milk went from $5 to $10, that's double the price, arbitrary example. And they literally have to think about, okay, how do we make our milk last longer? Do we mix this with water and dilute it? Right? That shit keeps me up at night.
Oh, it's 100% happening in many parts of society, and this is kind of why we're having these discussions to spotlight issues that are plaguing, whether it's you, me, the average person, or the person who is not really speaking up about these things.
Right.
Because maybe they don't have time to podcast and talk about this. Maybe they're on their second or third job.
Right.
You know? I think this is what society is contending with, and I really think that there are structural fractures and fissures happening in society in the same way that we, on the last episode, discussed things related to ICE and the authoritarian regime and all this stuff. I really, really do believe it's all related. And this, we've spoken about this before too. There's this book called The Fourth Turning, which often talks about society being divided into 20-year blocks in 4 separate occasions, right? So you have 2020, 2020, and the last 20-year block is really where we are right now. And that also kind of has to deal with the human age too, which is, the average person's age is, the average person's lifespan is about 77 to 80 years. And so as you start seeing the end of life cycle of what the last 80 years of America has been, you have people in power that are trying to do their best to hold on to power, keep their old ways. Whereas the newer generation, which is like the first 20-year block, is trying to turn that wheel from the fourth turning into the first turning.
Right.
This is why you see upheaval in society and, almost changes that are on par with mini revolutions. I'm not saying America is going to have like a Iranian style revolution, but it's a revolution in and of itself where we're just trying to get things to work for the younger aspects of society. And it's not. And I think the older people are just hanging on to that power too long. And that's why you're seeing all these issues.
That's why I support shorter terms. But we can talk about that another time. But off of all of this, I think it is still good to note that the economy is doing surprisingly well despite all of the challenges and headwinds that we are facing through. So that kind of gives me some, I don't know what you want to call it, but it kind of, at least there's some positive news on the economy front, the way that we're looking at it now. I'm not giving anyone credit for it just yet. I just want to see how things shake out, but that is good news in general. What I also do want to really touch on very quickly, speaking of economic growth, I feel like emerging markets around the world are also showing very unexpected strength. To give you an example, all these developed countries are projected to grow anywhere between 1.5% in 2025, 2026. And they're roughly maintaining a 4% growth, which is more than double, right? And that gap really makes a difference. So just to give more further perspective, India is sustaining a 6.4 to 6.7% growth. And that's primarily driven by reforms, digitalization, and the middle class just freaking exploding. The country is on track to become, I think, the third largest economy. which
Nuts.
is crazy to think about. They're already the largest population now.
Yes.
They're going to be the third largest economy. Indonesia is projected to do 4.7% in growth. And that's supposed to rise to 5.1% in 2026. Africa, on the other hand, is accelerating towards 4.3% growth by 2027. And East Africa is leading that at 5.9%. So if you look at all of that stuff, it's a very interesting market. Maybe it's time to start investing globally instead of, just looking at our traditional markets. A quick note that I want to make is the African Continental Free Trade Agreement. That's creating a $3.4 trillion economy of 1.3 billion people. And it's projected to drive $450 billion in income gains and lift nearly 30 million people out of extreme poverty.
Wow.
Which is super impressive to look at.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is truly incredible. I think part of this enormous explosive growth, especially with the emerging economies growing, is of course a younger population. The world itself is hungry. It has young people who want jobs, who want, decent livelihoods. They want to keep up with the times, keep up with the technological age. And I think that America itself needs to rethink how we are going to provide and take care of our own.
Mm-hmm.
Because the world itself is doing the same, where they have a really young, hungry population, and you do not want young people to have sort of, a lost generation like Japan did, or to have lower birth rates, or, unproductive subsets of the population, because that is truly the death knell of society.
Mm-hmm.
This is kind of like what you're seeing in Europe, because the birth rates are plummeting. And you're not having young people stay in the country. You're having them move abroad. So that causes a brain drain. It causes less contribution to taxes, to the facilities and faculties of society itself.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a negative death spiral, and that's something that, obviously these countries know that they don't want to go through, and they need to provide for their citizens.
Right. If you actually looked at the resilience of these countries, right, many of these emerging markets, what they've been kind of doing in the backgrounds is kind of what I would call foundation strengthening, right? So how are they doing this? How are they raising their growth? How are they getting, 4.3% growth in Africa, 5.9% East Africa? First of all, they're quietly reducing their debt. Okay. They're building international reserves. And primarily, I would say, they're improving monetary policy credibility. So when the United States raised their tariffs dramatically in, April 2025, markets were just like kind of braced for chaos, right? So these economies instead showed resilience by putting in better policy frameworks, and they started diversifying all of their trade relationships. What recently just happened, and I think this was yesterday too as of our recording, India actually struck a landmark deal with the EU on a huge free trade agreement. And this is a telltale sign that a lot of countries are not relying on America as a trading partner anymore, and they're starting to look elsewhere. And I think that's a reason why they're getting smart about how they want to grow.
Yep. 100%. I think all this is going to, again, this is why in some ways where I feel AI might be taking away, large swaths of the typical job, it also enables all these people to be incredibly powerful businessmen, entrepreneurs, build cool shit. And that just makes society just, so innovative. You look forward to what the next 1 year, 3 years, 5 years looks like, simply because you've now leveled the playing field for all people to have access to build cool shit.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I think the nuance of this is the general direction is showing that not only are these countries maturing at a high level, they're also becoming more and more self-sustaining. If you truly look at it, right? They're starting to create their own economies, their own manufacturing, their own in-house policies are pushing for sustainability aspects. Like a lot of these countries are starting to realize, like, look, trade, that's one aspect of getting things done, but we also need to look at ourselves and what we can accomplish on our own. Maybe that's the way America looks at things too, with the push to bring manufacturing back. We need to bring chips on board. We need to bring them inland. We can't rely on other countries to do this. And other countries are like, okay, maybe we take that playbook and start doing that too, and stop relying on the US too. I don't know. That's sorry. That's where I feel like other countries, it's going to be interesting to see that race to the proverbial top of where the economies are going to go, how global markets are going to change, because with this new deal with the EU and India, right? Does the US reduce its dependency 50%, 60%, 20%, whatever it is on the US?
Yeah.
It's hard to say. But yeah, I guess it's something that we'll continue to keep an eye on and bring to you guys. What do you think? Do you think we should wrap that up there?
I think so, man. All this AI stuff got me excited. I need to hop back on my Claude code and get to coding.
I feel like we're going to do at least another AI updated episode at some point. But I do think we should give the viewers, again, at some point in the future, our perspective on college in a nutshell.
Absolutely.
And maybe make that an entire episode on its own.
Let's definitely do that. Yeah, I want to do an episode on college being useful, how it was, how it's going to be, and then an update on AI. I will say one thing to close off the podcast. If anyone who's listening who has not tried out these AI tools, just simply download ChatGPT or Gemini or Claude and just start experimenting. Whether you want to feed it Excel data of your business, or you want to build a cool app or an idea, or you simply just want to ask it questions about health or legal questions or whatever. Just try it out. I encourage you to try it out.
And if you comment with what you've tried to do with AI, we'll actually go through the comments. We will read them and we'll pick out some interesting ones, and we may make that into an episode in and of itself. Who knows? But yeah, I think that is our podcast for today. If you think we missed something or you got a topic you want us to overanalyze next, hit the comment sections as usual, and we will try to bring the best ones. Until next time, folks. Peace.
Take care.
Push out. Put a push out. Put a push out. Put a push out.